Hello, Fit family. Welcome to an episode where we're talking about being mentally fit and physically strong on the Fit Doc Michelle Reed podcast. This week, we have a very special guest, Assemblywoman Taylor Darling from the 18th Assembly District. That's my Assembly District. And she knows everything from chess to politics to business. Yes, she is native to Brooklyn, but we have her here on Long Island. And so welcome very much, Assemblywoman Taylor Darling.
Thank you so much, Dr. Michelle, for having me. I am so excited to be here with you.
Oh, I'm excited to be with you too, because you have been in there strong with me for the last couple of years exercising. And, we're just going to jump right in, because one of the things that I enjoy about you is that you are really practicing what you preach. And also with you being devoted to the field of psychology, that ties into your health, that also ties into politics.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Mm-hmm.
I just love your holistic approach to what you do, and really much feel that I can connect with you. I can relate to you. But my question to you, and because I'm just going to just sort of change the thing that we're talking about, since you're a psychology major,
Mm-hmm.
we always talk about our elderly, because that's one of the things you've always pushed, our more seasoned people in our community.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing that is really near and dear to my heart is, how do we prevent dementia? Because there are millions of people out there who have dementia, and that affects their cognition, their memory, their thinking, their walking. So even like the simple things of like, did I just eat or did I not just eat? They can't remember.
Mm-hmm.
Now, with you as a psychologist,
Mm-hmm.
and then you now as a politician,
Mm-hmm.
how do you tie those two together as you are doing your job that you're doing?
That's an excellent question. So the first thing I want to say is, if we do not have our mental health, everything else comes crumbling around us. It's really hard to sustain everything that we have to do. So I really do focus first on, for me personally, my relationship with God, my faith, because there's so many things that happen to us and through us that we don't always understand. So having a solid foundation and relationship with a higher power has really been important for me. So after that space, it's really doing the daily check-ins. Like, how am I feeling today? Identifying my feelings, identifying things that trigger me, knowing when it's about time for me to be potentially, I'm hitting that burnt out, overwhelmed place where everything's kind of like leaving me on edge. When you feel your shoulders start to raise to your ears, because a lot of us carry our tension and stress up in our necks and shoulders. Someone told me one day we do that because it's like we're building an armor of protection from the world. And as much as that made me feel good, it made me feel sad, because especially thinking about Black women, so many of us, you touch our shoulders, they are rock hard, because we don't even realize what we're carrying and internalizing on a daily basis. So I would say, after the spiritual health and some type of routine in that space, making sure I check in with myself, making sure, again, I know what my triggers are. And then I cannot stress enough how important daily movement is. Daily movement does it all. I know how I feel after I'm done working out, even after 30 minutes daily. And it feels like there's really nothing that I cannot achieve. It gives me such a great feeling of accomplishment. And those endorphins are real. They really help to just give you that release, put things into perspective. And it's a space that you have where it says, I choose me. So in dealing and speaking about dementia, we learn in psychology, if you don't use it, you lose it. And that's for all of us. Yes, dementia, there is a genetic component to it, and there's a lot of science and research there. But some ways that our seniors are I guess, working to keep all of their cognitive functioning is, one, making sure that we're stimulating our mind every day. Sometimes when we leave work, we retire, we don't always do a great job of figuring out how we're going to fill that time, find our purpose, keep things sharp. So I know a lot of people who love Sudoku, who love crossword puzzles, who love to read, who love putting puzzles together. knitting, crocheting,
Mhm.
things that are going to help us with mindfulness, help us with alertness and keeping our mind together. And then again, I want to stress the movement piece.
Mhm.
Being active, I would even go an hour a day. Active can be walking, it can be dancing, it could be hardcore cleaning, it could be running after our grandchildren, running after our children. There's really no space. It's just making sure, hey, I've hit a great target heart rate for about an hour today or 30 minutes today, and I feel
Mhm.
good about that. Making sure we're relying on our support systems, right? To keep us grounded, to
Mhm.
allow us to do those check-ins with each other and ourselves, and also outside of our support groups, just making sure that our nutrition is where it needs to be.
Mhm.
The holistic approach to anything for me is the only approach. You can't fix one thing, or you can't have one area of your life that has a great foundation and
Mhm.
neglect the other areas, because eventually we start to overcompensate with other
Mhm.
parts of our life, and it just becomes very difficult and hard. So I would say those are the different ways that all of us can ward off dementia, because some days I feel like it's chasing me,
Mhm.
honestly, pulled in so many directions. And but there are some pointed things that we can do daily that will leave us in a much better position than not. Oh, and keeping up with our doctor's appointments, making sure we have look, I'm gonna put a plug in, making sure we have the right medical professionals on our team, getting those massages, not looking at those things as a luxury, because they're
That's
not.
right.
We need touch, we need these things, making
Oh,
sure
yes.
that we're not just seeing our doctors for physicals, but we're of course keeping on top of our physicals, but making sure that we're really maximizing whatever our insurance covers to
Mhm.
ensure that we're living the best quality of life every day.
Yes, and that's one of the things that I always say. If patients come to me like, "Well, will my insurance pay for this? Will my insurance pay for that?" I tell them, just the way you have a driver's license and you know with your driver's license you can drive throughout the United States, with your insurance card, you need to know what your insurance card will pay for.
Yeah.
So, yes, I would love for everyone to get mammograms at 35, because I've had patients under the age of 35 who've had breast cancer. But more times than not, some will pay for 35, well, some will pay for 40. So when you have that insurance card, it's very important that you know what it entitles to you. And especially now that we're talking about our elderly and dementia, more times than not, sometimes your insurance might even pay for that silver slippers program or that silver sneakers program, where you can get a gym membership and be
Yep.
active. And
Yep.
I mean, and I know like the two of us, because we're going to slide right into our Fit Doc Michelle Reed in real life segment, because you exercise with me before the pandemic, you exercise with me during the pandemic, and for the last couple of Saturdays, we've been doing 7 a.m. boot camp with boot camp guru Ty Wilkins. And I know he has been giving me extra workouts to do and extra numbers and extra reps. So I know he's been doing the same thing for you.
God
And
bless him.
and I appreciate the support with you, because even a couple of people showed up to class because you posted on social media what you were doing.
Yep.
And for me, it's really refreshing when someone practices what they preach, but they also share it with other people.
Of
And I
course.
I deeply thank you for that, because that
Yep.
that shows commitment.
Thank you. That sense of community is real. And I have to definitely return the thanks to you, because even though Hempstead Lake State Park is in my district and I get to oversee that park, I would have never spent as much time in that beautiful park without you having me walk every trail up and down in the marsh and the woods and the pond. It's just, once you're doing it, it's great. So to have someone who is ignited and committed and there, and you bring the right energy at any time of day, I honestly can't thank you enough either.
Well, thank you so much. And there's some new trails there that we have to go through.
I can't wait.
Oh gosh, because we're talking about endorphins, releasing those good endorphins to make us feel
Nature
good.
and
And
nature. Working
yes,
out in nature gives you that added benefit.
that's
I mean,
right.
once we see water, to know what it does for our heart rate, our blood pressure, our mental state, just
Mhm,
30 minutes in nature
mhm.
can do a world of difference
That's
for
right.
people. So to be able to work out in nature, we're maximizing that experience.
That's right. And that's why we have the 30 for 31 challenge for July, where we're asking everyone to exercise at least 30 days in the month of July, which has 31 days. So, I mean,
Yeah.
it's very important. And like I said, you truly do practice what you preach. Now, I am really curious because as a psychology major,
Mhm.
what made you decide to like dip your feet, dip your foot, both feet, then your whole body into the field of politics?
Oh, well, I love humans. And psychology is the study of human behavior. I love all humans. I don't know if I like all but I love all humans. Let me say that. And human behavior, I can't think of a better field to enter where you are now serving. So I identify as a public servant, and my psychology background has probably been one of the most important experiences to really just leverage this position right now to
Mhm.
serve as many people as effectively as possible, because I understand when someone calls the office and they are frustrated because they've been bounced around through all our levels of government and they
Mhm.
haven't been able to find a solution, or they've gotten used to not depending or relying on the very people that their tax dollars pay to represent them and serve them. So
Mhm.
I understand those things. I understand that if someone lives in a community or an area of our community where maybe they don't have great access to green space, maybe they're very overworked because it is expensive to live here, or there are
Mhm.
language barriers or other barriers where they cannot live the best quality of life, that they're going to
Mhm.
have a very different standard and approach when they come here, and knowing that I'm going to have to always be prepared to educate and let people know what it is that they deserve and should internalize, which for me it's excellence for the 18th. I think all of us should internalize that standard of excellence and expect it, because that's what we deserve. And so psychology has really helped. There have been times I've had to just kind of reference things, like even with childhood amnesia, that's a phenomenon in psychology,
Mhm.
right? Where they
Mhm.
say that from birth to 5, you may not recall specific events or memories, but you
Mhm.
can recall feelings. So when I speak to children, I understand, okay, if they're in this age group, I have to make sure I'm really engaging with them to make an impact. And I have to make sure that they're a part of this process as I teach them about government. And honestly, I have to say, our children are probably some of my biggest supporters, and they love to run home to their parents and say, hey, listen, you need to know this candidate, or you need to vote for her, or you need to call her because your job isn't treating you very well and she can advocate for you. And I'm just grateful that I have that background to be able to reference different stages of our life. I have to
Mhm.
handle everyone differently because your approach determines success or failure. And with my background, I'm able to really tailor my approaches to individuals and groups within our community.
Yes. And I think the fact that you are a wife, you are a daughter, and you are a mother. And I
Mhm.
mean, I applaud the fact that you became the assemblywoman and then you decided to have another child. So you've been operating these last, what, year or two as the mom of a child that's what, under how old now?
He just turned 2. And I will say, with the breastfeeding, you really need about 4 or 5, maybe like 3 years after you're done breastfeeding to start to feel like everything's regulating with your hormones, your energy. So the pandemic was definitely there was definitely a lot of tragedy in that experience,
Mhm.
but there was
Mhm.
also some great things to kind of just help us reset, which is family's the most important thing, our friends, our
Mhm.
support group. Being intentional with our time is important. And
Mhm.
without that pandemic, I would not have had time to pause to have him. My husband caught me, so I was able to have him, and I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful because the biggest thing on my bucket list, I have one more thing left on my bucket list, but he was the second to last thing on my bucket list was having a son. I've
Mhm.
always wanted to experience being a boy mom, and it
Mhm.
has not disappointed me. But boy, being a toddler mom, mm,
But
mm,
but my question is like you have your home base here on Long Island, but you
yes,
also have an office upstate in Albany, which is what, 3 hours away. So
yep.
how do you manage that being a mom with a teenager and a mom with a toddler, but having to commute from Long Island to upstate New York?
Yep. So I have a hidden middle child. We love her more than anything, but as you know, the second child and the middle child, I believe in birth order. She is my biggest fan, and I joke and say she's my biggest political liability.
Mhm.
So there's 3 of them. There's
Mhm.
the 17-year-old, the 9-year-old, and the 2-year-old.
Mhm.
And How do I manage it? So I want to recognize my speaker, the Speaker of the Assembly, Carl Hasty. He
Mm.
saw a bunch of us new parents, and he said for the first time in history, he would like to offer drop-in service, drop-in care. So we have on-site drop-in care for our little ones from
Mm.
about 9 in the morning till whenever we're done with session. So
Oh,
about
wow.
5 or 6 p.m. It is amazing. It's a member benefit, and I am so grateful to him and the whole staff involved. Baby Lord is thriving. So I travel with him from the
Mm.
district to Albany most weeks, not every week. And he spends, the first part of the week with me there. And then we have a child care provider here. And that's how I manage him.
Mhm.
My teenage daughter, she has gotten so much of me. She was the first one, and I was like a very young mom. So I was
Mhm.
very hands-on, and I just gave her so much. She probably welcomes me being away. Though she has said that she does miss me sometimes. But my middle baby, she was only 4 when I started this
Oh,
journey,
wow.
and she definitely has suffered the most because we are very close. And she's so proud of what I've accomplished, but she's sad because our connections there. She feels the loss every week. So I'm
Mm.
just managing
Oh.
ways to make her feel like she's part of it. So I devote at least a week where she comes up to Albany with me with her teacher support, and she gets to learn about government and just kind of see what I'm doing up here. And she loves it. They all love Albany. So I bring all of them up when I can, when it's appropriate. And one thing I'll say about the assembly, they love when we bring our families up because they
Oh.
understand we're going to do our best work when we know home is good. And you can almost feel the difference in members when they have their pets or their family up with them. It's like the best. Like Albany's a really great, fun place, but we do miss our families. So I love that I have a supportive work environment January to June when we're in session.
Yeah, so please excuse me for forgetting the middle child, because as a
Oh
middle
no.
child myself, like, I know how that could be.
No.
Like,
Oh, are you the middle child?
I'm the middle child.
Oh, and you know what's funny? You say this, Dr. Michelle, she acts just like you. Take away any sense of decorum and whatever. She is so strong, so assertive. You're not gonna forget she's in the room. And she's powerful and brilliant, and I love her. And I want her to be the same way, but it's like I feel like I
Oh.
have to like kind of keep her hidden a little bit because I don't want to stop her from being who she is.
Mhm.
But if I tell you some of the things this girl has said in front of community company, she'll be like, "Mom, you didn't say that," or I'm like, "Oh God." I'm
Well,
like,
you know what? But she's the one that keeps you on your toes.
yes, that
And
is
and
my
but
most
that's
challenge.
perfect.
Yes, yes, she's the most challenging part of my life because I know there's a great calling on her life. She
Mhm.
was almost exactly how I was as a child. My parents prayed that I would enjoy and suffer raising someone like me. And boy, oh boy, MD she keeps me on my toes.
So you know what? It wasn't that bad because now you have the 3.
Yes, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. We are done. Shop is closed. I can't have any more kids. Please, I'll
Well,
adopt, maybe foster, but no more kids will be exiting this womb.
so
So,
now, since you're talking about that, that's the end of that chapter. What are your top 3 causes that you are very passionate about for our lovely assembly district?
so glad you asked. First
Mhm.
and foremost, my favorite word in the world is equity.
Mm.
We know things will never be equal, right? Let me not say never. It's going to be very difficult to ever bring
Mm.
this country to a place where everyone feels like they live in equality. We just don't we were not set up for that. We did not
Mhm.
start and found this country like that. So equity is the name of the game, just making sure everyone has what they need to live their best quality of life,
Mhm.
and if that means one school district needs to have maybe a more support than another school district, that's what it needs to be, and
Mhm.
that's what I fight for every day. So that's a huge cause: equity,
Mhm.
health equity, educational equity, economic development equity, equity in real estate, home ownership, equity in just lifestyle and experiences. There are people in this district who do not have passports, who have not left New York, and for
Mhm.
me, that is a big, big issue. So just in that space, under our platform for excellence for the 18th,
Mhm.
that is something that will keep me employed for a very long time because
Mhm.
there's so many places you can go, and almost every bill that we introduce or we co-sponsor, every dollar we allocate to community organizations or our
Mhm.
municipalities, every time we address a constituent concern, we're running through that wheelhouse of we are building equity
Mhm.
every day. We're building it a little bit more. Also, one of my biggest causes that we have not yet been successful in resolving, Hempstead School District has never had district-wide busing.
Okay.
So we have some students that have to walk up to 3 miles to
Wow.
the high school and 3 miles home from. That's 6 miles a day, in crazy weather patterns. They may or may not have the proper clothing and footwear to make this 6 mile trek daily.
Mhm.
They also may not have had breakfast or have adequate,
Mhm.
nutrition and hydration. We know
Mhm.
how children are, and we do have families that have suffer with food insecurities and things like that.
Mhm.
And then also, the traffic patterns are insane. People
Oh,
use
yes.
the village to go to all of the areas that are connected through Hempstead. This
Mhm.
is the hub.
Mhm.
And to know that we do have some people who don't have the best intentions for our children, we do
Mhm.
still have presence of gangs, and our kids are walking through these
Do all
communities.
of
It keeps me up at night because it wouldn't fly in any other community
that.
that
Mhm.
this is the case. Hempstead School District has over a $300 million budget. It has to go a bunch of places, but to make sure that we get that one-time insurgence of whatever that would cost for us to give our children district-wide busing, because that's
Mhm.
half the battle, getting them to
That's
school safe and in one piece,
true.
right? I think it would change the face of this village. It would change our workforce. It would change
Mhm.
everything. And it's something, and just protecting and keeping our kids alive. Like, it
Yes.
would change so much. And then it's aidable after the first year up to 90%. So I am
Mhm.
working really hard and have been for the past 4 years. I've contributed $1 million to this cause, which is not enough to offer district-wide busing, but it was enough to say, hey, can we figure out what we can do, even if it's buying shuttles with the $1 million, whatever it is, for our children that are the furthest, once we identify who they are, which of course the school district's done a great job identifying those kids. And then the other piece to that was I work with NICE to just see what can we do with NICE. Can we have another bus stop in
Mhm.
front of the high school, because we have people who work here. The
Mhm.
Hempstead School District is the largest employer in the village of Hempstead. So
Wow.
so it's one of those things where let's just make sure we're really optimizing our resources we already have for transportation, while we
Mhm.
are still working together to figure out transportation barriers for our students and people who work in the Hempstead School District. And the last piece would be eliminating food deserts in our community and promoting healthy living. It makes me very sad that I feel like so many businesses that are awesome and great and
Mhm.
offer great foods are all outside of our community. I
Mhm.
feel like a lot of that is by design, because they want us to travel and spend our money in other communities
Mhm.
over our own, and everyone knows the power of the black dollar, the brown dollar. So they much rather make sure that, hey, I mean, I think I would die if I saw a Whole Foods
Mhm.
within the 18th Assembly District. We don't have one Whole Foods, if I'm not mistaken, but I have one right outside of it. So it's one of those things where those are three major causes that I care about, but there are
Yes.
a bunch more.
And and those are 3 powerful causes, because even as a physician, that affects my patients that I'm trying to take care of. Because if I'm saying, "Okay, you should drink water," but, some people, their plumbing is not sufficient enough for them to drink the tap water. And
Yeah.
then not everybody can afford to get a filter for their water system, and not everyone can afford to get bottled water. And then if you tie in like, "Oh, yeah, so make sure you get your fruits and vegetables." Doesn't have to be organic, well, where are we gonna go? Because if you go to the local bodega, they're gonna charge higher prices, and you still have to check your expiration
The
date to be
quality,
able to
yeah.
buy anything that's gonna be perishable.
Yep,
So,
the quality, yeah.
yeah, so all of these things you have to think of, and people wanna say like, "Oh, it's not my concern." It's always everybody's concern, because whatever is going on in one community, people
Amen.
travel outside of where they live. And
Amen.
whatever habits they have, good or bad, it travels into your community.
Exactly.
So, it's no
I
longer
tell
not in
Yeah.
my backyard, it is
No.
right there in your community too.
I tell people that all the time. I say
Mhm,
it is in all of our best interests to care
mhm,
about everyone, but
mhm,
especially our neighbors and other communities, especially when you see such a large disparity in the quality of life. Because when people get hungry or people don't have, they're not going to rob each other.
mhm.
They're going to rob you.
Yep.
So we don't have gates around these communities here. We are dealing with disparities where in one I can go up 2 blocks in Hempstead. I could be sitting in front of $1 million house, and I can go that other 2 blocks, and I'm sitting in a situation where so many people are living on top of each other,
Mhm.
and it's just not. It's not an ideal living environment,
Yeah.
and I don't want to speak about anyone's environment of living, but I don't like the disparities that I see here. This is the
Mhm.
suburbs. And there's some areas that just don't feel suburban. They don't have that integrity that we've moved to the suburbs to acquire. And it's okay for some people, but it's not okay for others. And to me, that is a big issue.
Yes, and even with you talking about what's going on with busing, I'm not gonna say what year I graduated from high school, but for
I'm going to
me
say 2007. Just to give you enough time to get your doctorate and all, to get your medical degree.
but when I was in elementary school, my school district did not have buses. So in Lakeview, you had to cross the ocean because we are predominantly Black and Hispanic neighborhood now, but the Blacks, their school got shut down in Lakeview, and they had to cross Ocean Avenue and go into Malvern to go to school.
Yeah.
And my mother and a couple of other people, they got together with some people on the other side of the ocean from Malvern, and they had a lawsuit. And I
Wow.
remember the lawyer, like I can't remember many names, but Al Dorfman was the attorney
Wow.
that was involved with this lawsuit. I wasn't named on the lawsuit. My younger brother, Michael, was. But if you look at it, like I actually saw the paper, his name is actually listed with some other kids in the community. So I missed that whole experience of riding the bus because parents had to carpool.
Wow.
So we were part of a carpool. There were about 5 kids. Our parents would alternate who would drive us, who would pick us up because it was very dangerous, just the
Dangerous.
same
Yep.
conditions that they have in Hempstead, where you're crossing a busy road
Yep.
with speeds going up to like 35 to 40 miles per
Yep.
hour. And then at the same time, and these are elementary school ages, and then some parents were able to get a busing system together, and they would get the little buses, and that would take their kids across to the school and
Wow.
pick them up. And then there were those whose parents couldn't afford to do either one because they didn't even have cars, and those kids had to actually walk. So I am praying that eventually
Me too.
Hempstead will be able to be made whole
Yeah.
and offer busing because no child should have to walk
I,
to
I agree.
school and walk. I can run a marathon. You can run a marathon. We can
Yep.
run half marathons. We can run a 5K, and a 5K is 3.2
Mhm.
miles.
Yeah.
And even
You-
if I say on our best day we're doing a 3.1 mile race, I'll say like in 25 to 30 minutes, that's us going at a good clip.
Yeah.
So a child walking, that's going to take them like an hour plus to get to and from school. And then if they haven't had adequate nutrition, that's going to affect how they
Yeah.
sit in class and pay attention.
Yeah.
And then that'll affect their grades if they're not able to excel. And then they'll be back on the street. So it's very important. So, I am so happy that you really are that passionate and that concerned about making sure that all of your district is
Yeah.
taken care of and not playing favorites, even though, I would love for you to play favorites, but not.
Lakeview is definitely one of my favorites, even though I don't play favorite. Lakeview is definitely one of my favorites, but you're 100% right. I look at the district holistically, and it's like triage.
Mhm,
That bus issue is like someone
mhm,
coming into the ER holding their head.
mhm,
Like I still of course work around it, but when anyone asks me what is the major thing, it's like literally beating in my head
mhm,
because the benefits and the ramifications and just that message of what it sends
mhm,
to children.
mhm.
There are other kids on the same
That's right.
island in the same
Taken
county
care of.
that are more valuable than you are
Mhm,
based on our actions and what we've allowed for you.
mhm,
Absolutely not. I hate it.
mhm.
I hate it. And I am going to, if it's the last thing I do, I want this resolved.
So my thing to you is you are a wife, you are a mom, and you talked about having that spiritual side, being centered. I'm trying to figure out, when do you have time to work out, and what does your workout routine consist of?
Okay, so I am a very early riser. Like,
Mhm,
I think I was a farmer in my past life
mhm,
because if you told me, Hanny, you should wake up at 4 in the morning, I'm excited about waking up at 4 in the morning. Now, am I always good about going to bed at the right time to wake up at 4 and be ready to go? Not necessarily, but 2 days of waking up 4 in the morning, you will start to adjust because you'll probably pass out around 6, 7 p.m. But I will say, I think Mark Wahlberg also wakes up at 4 in the morning. I call 4 to 5 in the morning the billionaire hour. Like
Mhm.
when you're up because no one's usually awake with you. You have that time to, I like to pray first thing. I like to do a
Mhm.
devotional first thing. And
Mhm.
then when I am active at that time, it's like a life hack. It's like I got the cheat code to life because anything extra for the rest of the day still counts as movement. I use my
Mhm.
Apple Ultra watch. It counts as movement. If I want to do it 2 a day or I want to meet a friend or have a walking meeting, that's extra. Even walking from my office to the Capitol,
Mhm.
that's extra, right? But I like to work out usually January to June when I'm in Albany. I have more control of my time then. It's 5, 6 in the morning. I'm working out for about an hour. So it's
Mm.
usually weightlifting. So weightlifting, a lot of pushing, a lot of pulling with weights, a lot of lifting, a lot of squatting, a lot of standing, really just like functional exercise in that
Mhm.
way with weights and then of course progressing those weights to see those results. And then I attempt to do at least a mile of cardio,
Okay.
like at a good speed. So if it's elliptical one day, or maybe I'll dance for like 8 songs straight because
Mhm.
it's like the way our gym's set up, it looks like a dance studio too, and that's in Albany.
Mhm.
Here, I'm a member of Lifetime Fitness. They have, it's an athletic club. It is very expensive. However, if you are able to maximize the amazing classes, I mean, these personal trainers, I've never worked with personal trainers like this before because they have such an amazing understanding of every ounce of your body,
Mhm.
your form. They know how to get that form right. And then the classes they offer classes like almost like every minute they're open there's a class, and these classes are so value added. And then the kids are able to, they're members too, so they take gymnastics and karate
Mm.
and crafts, and they're always doing stuff. So to be able to bring them there and know that they're having a great time, my husband and I, that's kind of like our date time because he loves to lift weights. you know it's really been a game changer because I can say I don't feel like thinking about a workout. I'm just going to take
Mhm.
this class. I'll suffer through that. Then we'll do like a yoga recovery class, which I never enjoyed yoga. In Lifetime, I was able to find yoga classes I connected with
Good.
just because I know I need to work on my mindfulness and just all that stuff.
Mhm.
It's really been helpful. So that's how I'm able to do it, where it's like every day, every day, let's make a plan for it and then make a backup plan because I don't
Mhm.
always control everything. But if I'm in those hours in the morning, government doesn't start moving and shaking until about 9, 10. So I should be able to squeeze that in and do that.
So, which is perfect because you were, like I said, I keep saying you practice what you preach.
Mhm.
And because you need that energy and you realize the importance of being mentally fit and physically strong.
Yeah.
And that side is something that it shines in your energy, it shines in your personality, and it
Thank
shines
you.
on all of the policy that you have actually put into effect for our district that
Yeah.
you have been in charge of. And that
Yeah.
right there shows your strength and your power, that
Definitely.
muscle.
Definitely. We got to do it. We have to do it. But you're right. I would not be able to keep up with everything that I have to do without being active. It makes me
Mhm,
feel like, again, it's a life hack.
mhm,
Literally, you'll meet those people where they're older and they're maybe bent over in themselves and they have a
mhm.
cane. Then you'll meet the people in the same age who, and again, I want to say genetics does play a part,
That's right.
but none of us will lose from being active daily and doing our best to keep our nutritional system as whole as possible. Leave those processed foods where they are. I always tell my kids, if you can't identify the food in nature in
Mhm.
its natural state, it's gone too far. Like, like an egg needs to look like an egg.
Mhm.
Broccoli needs to look like broccoli. Like, so that's what I say, and then even reading the ingredients of everything. If it says frozen peas, I want the ingredients to say peas. So that's where we are, just
Mhm.
doing our best there. And if that's all that's in our home environment, even if we go crazy sometimes when we're outside, 80% of the time, we're pretty on top of our nutrition in our house. So grateful
Yes.
for that.
But you know what? Before we wrap up, I have one question for you. What is one thing that people might not know about you? I have to always throw in a ringer.
Does it Is it, first of all, I feel like I'm psychoanalyzing myself. Is
Oh
it
Lord.
bad that my brain always goes to like an X-rated part of that experience when you say that? I mean, sexual health is important too, right? So I instantly went over there. But because I am a lady and a wife and my husband will kill me, I will say one thing people do not know about me is that I have visited all 50 states.
Oh,
So
wow.
that was a huge goal of mine, and it came through chess. Shortly after I retired from chess when I was 13, my dad was my
Mm.
chess coach. Once he died, I fought him on the game while he was alive. So once he was gone, all the magic was gone for me. So
Oh.
I associate chess with him, and I'm kind of working through that this year. So I touched a chess set for the first time in a very long time. So but with chess, we had to compete nationally. So, and my parents were avid travelers anyway. One day I had the map in front of me and I had a bunch of stickers. And I just started putting stickers on all the states I went to. I think I finished at 35. And I said, you know what?
Mm.
Before you turn 40, I want you to finish all 50 states. So I started being more intentional with where I traveled to, and it's beautiful. So I want that to be a part of our legacy where all of my children do it, and maybe we help them and facilitate those states. And I just think that's great. And I did all that just to say I've been to all 50. New York is the best state in this country. I'm,
Go
I'm
New
an
York.
expert. I'm an expert now. Yes. Yes, New Yorkers who've never been anywhere, you don't have a leg to stand on. But I call me up and I'll talk to anyone. We have mountains, rivers, streams, oceans. You want to live in a room with your neighbor? We have that. You want to live 18 miles from your neighbor? We have that. We have everything here. We have the city in the world. Like we have everything you want. Yeah, New York's the best state.
Well, Assemblywoman, I thank you so much. You are just not the Assemblywoman for the 18th. You are for the entire, I'll say United States of America.
Yes, yes, yes. I love
Because I
everybody. Yes.
feel that your presence is not just on Long Island, it's not just New York State. You have a international presence. We thank you for taking the time for being on the Fit Doc Michelle Reed show. We're going to make sure that people can get in contact with you, that they have numbers, especially people who live in the Assembly District who maybe
Yes.
like didn't realize that it's so important for them to register to vote to elect you and to re-elect you when it comes time for an election because of the things that you do for not just Long Island, but the whole policy that affects New York State. I
Definitely.
and you know what? And my last thing is I want to make sure that everybody continues to join us on our Saturday workouts at 7 a.m.
Yes.
with boot camp guru Ty Wilkins. Hopefully, you're going to be ready for the next class.
Yes. That's my plan.
It's
Yep.
going to be at Hempstead Lake State Park. I saw the little eye roll going up. Field number 1.
Yeah. Oh man, you have to
7
complain a little bit.
a.m. Free workout. All
Yep.
you have to do is bring your positive attitude and a yoga mat. So until next time, thank you very much, everyone. And
Thank
thank you
you.
so much, Assemblywoman. We appreciate you.
I appreciate you. It was my pleasure. Thank you so much, Dr. Michelle.
Thank you.